I think the starting point is yourself. It's never the organization, right? Everybody's empowered in every organization to be able to do something as long as they have the courage of their conviction.
This week's guest on Questions I Wanted to Ask is one of the most brilliant minds in the business of media and entertainment, Tarun Katyal. Ex-CEO of ZEE5 and Big FM, Tarun has been at the helm of some of the biggest content formats and media brands that we have seen in the last 20 years. Whatever my understanding of the business of content has been over these years, I would say a large part of that foundation was laid while I worked with Tarun. And I really wanted to bring a glimpse of this understanding through his lens and the clarity that he has. Today's conversation is all about content, how creators can stay relevant, being able to identify the right kind of content, the skill set that we need in today's times, and understanding about building a personal brand. And in all of this chaos, how meditation has been able to bring balance in his life, which he's been practicing for the last 20 years. Okay. Tarun, welcome to Questions I Wanted to Ask. I am so excited and honored that you agreed to do this. It's a personal win for me that you've taken time out to do this for me today. Thank you so much.
Not at all. We had some very nice experiences working together. And for anybody who's, worked along with me, they would know that some of these relationships are very dear and precious to me, and I continue to keep them for long.
Thank you so much. And I think, that's what I kind of wanted to bring out, because a lot of people know you as the creative genius in the business. But I guess, there's the other side of you, which I really want to talk about. Behind the hustle, behind the passion, behind the glamour, there is so much more of you that, I've had the experience and good opportunity to kind of, see, that I thought, let me kind of take this opportunity. But, I'm going to kind of step back a little, Tarun, and talk about what's happening right now with you. So television, radio, digital, and now you're kind of putting all of that together and moving on to a completely new side of investing into new companies, creating new digital based companies, and of course this entire thing about digital learning. What is happening, just to give everybody who's listening to understand what is happening with you and the 26 minds that you have?
I think you're giving me more credit than needed, but life's been kind. The journey's been good. I think I got the opportunities almost at the right time, right place, as they say. And right from doing broadcast television at Star and Sony to be able to do FM radio when it was starting off in the country with Big FM, to doing regional television at Big, and then doing OTT with ZEE5. It was a really good journey. And I think one thing that was common in all of these was that I got the opportunity of being extremely entrepreneurial, right? Most of these were binary, 0 to 1 kind of transformations. When we came into Star Plus was an English part Hindi channel. And, had to be completely relaunched, reconfigured. Then when I went to Sony, because of the immense success at Star Plus, Sony needed to be relaunched. Big FM, at least in itself, was a ground up.
Yeah.
So was ZEE5. So all of these were really entrepreneurial journeys. And I think the time had come for me to do true entrepreneurship, doing my own thing over a period of time. And that was the opportunity that I kind of introspected with during COVID. I think COVID gave us a little bit of time to look within and to be able to reassess the paths that all of us were walking on, and what was important and what was, really the core of our being. And that led me to realizing that I wanted to give back and do stuff that really was, something that came to me from my heart. And I divided my time into 2 buckets, really. One being businesses that I wanted to mentor and help and invest in and grow. And the other one is a business that I'm launching myself to run myself and be operationally involved with. I haven't really spoken about it to most people, and we will make the public announcement only in this week. But really, the first bucket, what we did was, with a bunch of really good founding teams, we've done an edutech company in upskilling, which is called Results and Outcomes. And it's a really exciting space where we're helping businesses as well as individuals upskill using cutting edge technology pieces, being able to use cases that are just coming into business. So the entire curriculum is taught by founders as well as CXOs from across the world. And it's really one of the kind in the world, a program like that or a platform like that. The second and the most important one is on personality development. So that was an exciting journey that I helped Priya Kumar take to be able to build a platform called Genius Inside. Both of these are live platforms now, and I can see a lot of people benefiting from them. So it's really gratifying to be able to bring something alive and make it happen. I then worked with another team to be able to build a creator tool for writers called Serendipity, which goes live very soon. And then there are other businesses that I've helped either invest in or grow bigger. But the second part of my life, which is an operational, almost an operational cum strategic part of my life now, is the most enriching one, which is about building a platform for women. I'm very keenly involved with building a platform for women that they can have the freedom to express themselves. They can have the freedom to build communities. They can have a freedom to be able to do commerce. So it's really content, community, and commerce platform only for young girls and women, which gives them a sense of being, a sense of identity, a sense of inclusion, a sense of finding their own independence.
Sure.
And it's in the project. It's called eWorld platform, and I'm coming together with two of my ex-colleagues from Z5 to put this together. So that's really something that we're very excited about because it's extremely purpose-driven. We think that women do need a digital platform, a virtual place to be able to be themselves. And unfortunately, what was happening in the streets in most parts of the world has now started to happen on the internet. Yeah. So we want to give them a safe haven to be able to find their true identity. And so that's the two parts of my life. The first part is really mentoring, investing, and building businesses through teams. And the other one is something that I'm doing myself.
Interesting. I'm just like somehow very excited about this woman idea, which I think I'm going to speak to you about later. But Tarun, you mentioned something called as when you were in the different jobs that you at these different organizations, you said that you were still able to be an entrepreneur, right? I want to understand that piece a little bit. A lot of us who are in jobs feel that we have limited access or limited control to what we can do, right? How does one kind of, do that? Like if you really have to, I know it could be a mixture of the organization, the bosses, etc., various things, but can you decode that part for me? And now it is increasingly more important, right? To be more entrepreneurial in what you're doing. How does someone become that?
I think the starting point is yourself. It's never the organization, right? Everybody's empowered in every organization to be able to do something as long as they have the courage of their conviction, right? You're not doing this for anybody else. You're doing this for yourself. So as long as you're clear that, that I have a great idea or there's something really, awesome that I think I want to do, you should be a deliberate creator behind it. And by deliberate creator, I mean somebody who creates deliberately, who is in their mind as well as in their day-to-day actions, very focused around creating a certain amount of value, a certain amount of access, or a certain amount of, imagination to idea, right? But conviction comes from having a great imagination. First, you've got to imagine what you want to make of something, right? Sure. And as you imagine more and you get immersed into that, then the next step is to be able to build a certain amount of conviction to say, hey, I've imagined this new reality. Now I want to make it happen. And if you truly want to make it happen, and if you're a deliberate creator, then you will go out and take actions and steps on a daily basis to make that happen, right? All of us have fleeting ideas, but we don't immerse in them. We don't hold on to those thoughts. We don't really write them down and say, hey, okay, this is a thought I have and I want to really convert my life using this thought. Those are things that we need to be, we need to have close to my heart, right? Close to your heart. I think the idea to action is the biggest, gap in all our lives, right? Because nobody is short of ideas, right? But it's about how much you believe in your idea, how much you immerse in your idea, and how much are you willing to give it all to act on it to make it happen, right? And if you do all of that, then you're bound to see results, and you will find obstacles. You will find, things, people, places, everything that comes along the way that may not be favorable. But that is when your conviction gets tested, right? That's when your true entrepreneurial spirit gets tested. Are you willing to push along, or are you at the first sign of resistance willing to give up? And, those are things that we have to answer for ourselves. Because you can't say, I tried and now, I can't do no more, right? And nor am I saying that you try physically. I think you've got to try through your energy, right? All of us have great energy within. And if we think we're committed to making something happen, then we will put our energy behind something. And like they say, right, if you put all the energy behind something, it is bound to take shape into something.
Yeah. Interesting. In fact, one of my next questions was that, you're somebody who has a very, very strong ability to identify content. And I think I've seen this across mediums, from television to radio to even digital. Tarun, what is that? I mean, so a lot of people who hear this podcast are in their 20s and 30s. A lot of them are creators. A lot of them are in the business of identifying content, right? And for me, I think you've been that one person. If I have to tell you this, I think I've learned a lot of identifying content and packaging content from you. How does, is it something that is completely instinctive based, or it's something that you develop, through some skill set, through some reading? I don't know how do you become that person who can identify, curate, package more content and, with better insights?
What is your gut? First of all, that's the question. Your gut is what is in your subconscious. Where do things go into your subconscious? They are loads of experiences that you have over a period of time that go into your subconscious, right? So that's the starting point. Nobody really is born with some gut or instinct. It's over a period of time what you let your subconscious access. Yes, in my journey of content and content creation, I possibly have done what they call the 10,000 hours, which is the Malcolm Gladwell story of outliers, right?
Yeah.
Any business I get into, I have decided to immerse myself into two sides. One, great content across the world in that genre. Sure. And two, the user itself, and what are the user gaps and what are the user looking for. I think if you can do both of these, you're in good place, right? And then you've got that develops your instincts, that develops your gut, and then you've got to use those instincts to make good decisions, right? And two things will happen. One, you will have, or to you will come the most obvious, easy things to do. But remember, a champion's pain lies on the other side, right? So the other side of fear is always freedom.
Sure.
And if you want some amount of freedom, then you've got to overcome your fears about failure. We don't do new and different things because we're scared of failure. So we conform. We do what I call MOR, middle of the road stuff, right? Yeah. We are not willing to take risks. We are not willing to make a statement. We're not willing to have a sense of purpose. So if you have content which has strong central insights, which has a strong sense of purpose, which makes a statement. It could go horribly wrong. It could raise some shackles in the society, but it's definitely going to do something or the other. But if you do what everybody has done for success and try replicating that as is, because you think that if somebody's found the formula, I might have just use it, then it's kind of tough.
What according to you, I mean, so there's so much of content, right? What is your personal, how do you consume this content to be updated, to ensure that, so there is books to read, there's stuff to watch, there's stuff to hear. How do you then personally, and this I'm asking you as a content person?
Instinctively, I don't watch stuff that looks very repetitive.
Sure.
Right. So I tend to read about that stuff before I start watching it. And if I think that this has traces of what I've seen or what tends to happen all the time, I tend to stay away from it. I'm very precious with my time. So if I pick up a web series, I've just finished a series called Ted Lasso.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, it's on Apple TV.
Yeah.
It's about a football coach, right? But it's not a very classic, Moneyball type of inspirational story where you just put together a football team and you win. I mean, sorry for the spoilers, but actually in the 2 seasons, the team really goes nowhere. But it's about a character who's able to, in a very normal way, inspire people, right? And I had tried making a series like this at ZEE5, but it did horribly wrong because we went wrong with the same coach character and didn't do it the way we needed to do it. But
also execution, I guess.
It was execution and a bit of the script. But the fact is that Ted Lasso, and there are many of these coach and football and sports stories, but Ted Lasso as a character stands out humongously, right? It's an awesome character. And that's what inspired me to watch that show. So for me, it's very important to have a sense of purpose, to be able to take some risk. Is it making a statement? Does it have a really strong insight that people can relate to, but doesn't take the narrative exactly where, people have seen many, many times before? That wanting to replicate somebody else's success and make your own is like fast copy, which doesn't really work. Yeah.
Interesting. What happens today when, there are loads of content pieces out in the market to be picked, or there are more options from a buyer's perspective, right? But you don't know how does one get courage to be able to sustain? For example, everybody's talking about Squid Games now, right? And speaking about that 10-year journey of the creator and how he sat for 10 years, there was no buyer. And then in 2019, Netflix came and all of that. What should creative people, at what point should say that, okay, now I'm done with this project and let me move on to the other?
So you know what, if you built a great character, pieces of content that you think is very good, you've tried it around and it hasn't worked, it could be one of 2 things, right? One, it isn't as good as you think it is. Everybody likes their own creation more than it is, right? And so there is a sense of repetitiveness, a sense of deja vu. There isn't too much novelty, so on and so forth. And so be it. The other is that it is possibly ahead of its time. And it has all of this, but the people at the right to the wrong place can't see it. Now, you can do 1 or 2 things after that. One is find other people who will have the courage of conviction to go along with you and convert that story or that idea into some form of, either a promo or a visual art or whatever, so that you can take them one step ahead to be able to marry your imagination. What happens is that what's in your head, what you're narrating to what people understand sometimes has a gap, right? Sure. Every writer is not the best narrator. Every narrator is not the best writer. So there could be many issues, right? So take the next step, find somebody who has conviction, take the next step, partner with somebody, and to be able to build a creative promo or a creative tool for people to be able to see what you're saying. And if you still fail, right? And if you think that there aren't buyers enough, either for self-funding or for anybody else's, commission journey, then just keep it in the drawer and there will be time for it. And like many other shows, at maybe, as the time passes and as people realize that, that the world is a different creative place than they've imagined it to be, or that they're repeating it to be, just open the door at the right time and go back. So every now and then dust it out and talk to people. A lot of the shows I've made are not always, weren't always commissioned at the word go, but we held on to them because we knew that there's something good in them. The time may not be right. And over a period of time, the time does get right. So, it isn't, the journey is never over as long as you're willing to stay behind it. It's finally, the universe is testing your conviction.
Yeah. I mean, I had Bhavani on the show in one of the previous episodes, and she mentioned about how the moment she stops writing, she moves on to the next, and then every script will have a life of its own, and she waits for it to have a life of its own, and otherwise she'll just let it go, which is a beautiful, way to kind of part with your own creation.
Yeah, and sometimes it's not, like I said, sometimes either it's not as good as you think it is, or it's ahead of its time. One of the two may be happening, right?
Interesting. I'm going to take a step back, Tarun, and talk about the digital pieces that you are doing. In all of this, I think what I want to understand is what, according to you, if you are somebody in the media and entertainment business, right, are the skill sets, because you're talking about upskilling, you're talking about upgrading yourself. You yourself went and actually did a course on digital transformation, right? And trust me, I have gone in 2 or 3 meetings where people have actually mentioned that, hey, listen, do you know that Tarun's done this course? And I'm like, okay, sure. So it's interesting. Tarun, what are those 3 or 4 skills, irrespective of whether you are a creator or a business person in the field of media and entertainment, that one should know now or for the next 5 years? I won't say much, but
I think to be able to appreciate data has become very, very critical. Right? Sure. And it's not the data of broadcast television where you had TRPs and so on and so forth. It's much deeper. It's much more granular. Your ability to understand it at n equal to 1, which is at a single individual user level, is very, very important. So that's one thing that I would recommend to everybody. The other is important to understand technology and platforms at a certain level, right? So an appreciation of how platforms work, what goes behind a platform, what do they really measure, how do they really personalize content for users? How does a recommendation engine work? What is the role of metadata? What is the role of to being able to write concise and precise descriptors about your content? All of these things matter a lot, right? On broadcast television, you didn't need to do all this. But today, because your search is linked to good meta, your search and your recommendation is linked to good descriptors, there is a significant role of language, cast, subtitles, so on and so forth. If you understand how a platform works, you will be able to understand what are the right things to be done when you're making a show as well as when you're releasing a show. So that's very, very important. The third is, I think the time has come to be able to do what I call fast content, which is that, the user insights are changing very, very dramatically, and you have to have an ear on the ground. You've got to be watching social. You've got to be watching what are the relevant trends that will sustain on an ongoing basis. Yeah. So subjects that become very dated, or subjects that are not relevant anymore, even though however good they are, they don't find resonance with the users. So when you're building your characters, when you're building your backdrops, when you're building your stories, today people are consuming too much content continuously on an ongoing basis across many, many platforms, short form, text, long form, premium, so on and so forth. And they're very exposed. So you cannot build in isolation. Your characters cannot be, dated in isolation. 6 years ago, when House of Cards came, they were very, very effectively in that show using messengers, right? And it was one of the early shows which had started to put out text messages on the side and blurbs. And so one thing is to show text messages, but two, what they were really showing is that characters were interacting with each other within the show digitally as much as they were interacting with each other within the show personally, right? So what were they reflecting was that in the world exists both in digital as well as in the real space. And when you're building a show or you're making a show, you've got to be able to reflect that reality even on the tube. So it was important while you may think it's a small thing, but it resonated a lot more to users, right? And they had moved away from news in a format of a newspaper, but had moved to fast news and breaking news on the internet, and how tweets and so on and so forth were changing people's lives. So I think the reflection of our social being was very, very true in some of these stories. But then there are other shows. When you look at them, they're completely lost to the reality that we live in today. And their characters don't reflect what is going on in people's lives on an ongoing basis.
Yeah, I mean, at the same time, while you have current shows, there are historicals as well that are doing extremely well.
And at least then you're buying into an idea of it being an historical. But you're not showing me a contemporary show that is out of sorts with what the contemporary world is.
Yeah, makes sense. Tarun, you mentioned something about fast content, right? In my experience of working with creators, and you yourself work with so many, I mean, you've mentored and you've been, with so many creative artists across different genres. There's this constant complaint, or, there's this constant dilemma of algorithm versus art or creativity, because creativity does stop at a certain point, algorithm doesn't, right? So creators are constantly getting tired because they can't, some of them, they can't churn out content so much. What is your advice to creators? So there are one or two of them who will make it big, but then there'll be those who don't want to do that, right? But at the same time, continue to, be relevant in this thing. What is your
I think the point
this?
You made was continue to be relevant. So if you want to be relevant, you've got to be innovative. You've got to be thinking differently, and you can't hold on to success.
Sure.
Algorithm does not, after a point, pay any dividends for something that you did a long while ago. Now, I have a great friend, and he used to do this comedy character for very long on social, right? Let me get the right word, but he would change his sex on the.
I think I know who you are talking about, but yeah.
Yeah, and there's a peak of when you do what you do, right? But you've got to realize that peak is going to come and go, and you may become irrelevant over a period of time. You can't hold on to success without re-innovating it or reinvigorating it, or thinking of the next ladder or the next step that you're going to take on the ladder. Enough, right? So your success is linked to your ability to innovate.
Sure.
Right? We think that we did a great thing and we must hold on to it forever. Can't do.
Sure.
I'll give you my example, right? When we were doing KBC, the first season, and we were down about 200, 300 episodes. And we realized that at 300 episodes, it had reached its peak. Now, unless we did something new to the format and also restrained it and let people have more of it later, this would go nowhere. And I spoke to Siddharth Basu, and I spoke to Sameer Nair and Mr. Bachchan. And we all were mature enough to realize that it was time to give it a break and give it a stop. And that's why the show has lasted for so long. When we look back 20 years, the show is still on. And they have been able to re-energize the show every season when they come back. They do very little of it. And two, they do something new every season they come back. And unless you're willing to do that, right? And unless you're willing to take the leap and to cross the river every time, you're not going to be able to survive. And creators need to understand that they can't live on past glory.
Yeah, I guess I think this is pretty much applicable to whether you're a creator, you're an artist, you're an actor today.
Yeah. It's just about anybody. Yeah. If you can't reinvent yourself, then you can't expect to be relevant all the time.
Interesting. But in all of this, I think there is this because of this constant hustle, I also see so many of them getting tired, and there is this issue of course, a lot of mental health issues because of this constant scrutiny and stuff like that. But Tarun, you've been doing this for the last 20 years, constantly creating content, running businesses worth crores and whatever.
I recommend a really nice book for most people to read. It's called Thinking Fast, Thinking Slow, or Thinking Fast and Slow. Right? What happens is that when we are doing something, we think fast and we do more of that. But when we have to reinvent ourselves, we've got to change our thinking and think slow and think deliberate. And what happens is when you get used to thinking fast, you're burning out because you're just thinking fast all the time, right?
Yeah.
And also less is more. It's not that you have to do too much, but you have to do good quality stuff. Do less, but make an impact with what you do, and then keep reinventing yourself. So when you're in this desperate need to do more and think fast, you're going to, like what you're just saying, you're going to burn out.
Yes. Yeah. But I mean, that thinking slow is equally important, taking breaks and then reassessing.
You've got to exercise your mental muscle.
Yeah.
And it's tough. I've had many experiences when, on thinking fast, you end up making some decision and say, hey, this is not a good decision. And you lie back and say, we've got to think slowly. Let's think deliberately. Let's go deep into what we're thinking.
But you're also one of the fastest decision makers I've ever worked with.
That's true. And I agree with you. But
most people think that's your strength, by the way.
Yeah. And it is. But, behind that strength lies a deliberate amount of thinking, right? So taking a decision is also saying no or yes, right? And you're able to say no or yes because you've deliberately thought about what you're really looking for. If you're clear about what you're looking for, that's when you can take a decision, right? When you're not clear about what you're looking for, you're going to take longer to decide. But to be clear about what you're thinking, you've got to spend some time introspecting, and you've got to spend some time thinking slow.
I would have asked you about books towards the latter part of the conversation, but since you mentioned about this book, are there any other books that you recommend, like amongst the top 5, which you think, if you're in the business of media and entertainment, or even from a personal growth perspective, are like your top 5 books? Just
I think Malcolm Gladwell is a good writer. Blink and Outliers are good books to read on how to go about, building your life and building your success. I think Thinking Fast, Thinking Slow is really good. The Celestial Prophecy is really good. Think and Grow Rich is very good. So these are some books that I read quite regularly. Yeah.
Okay, I'll move on to the personal part of the conversation, wherein I think I want to know about everything that goes in the brain. That is Tarun. Tarun, I have seen you almost on days where you have worked for 18 and 20 hours, and this is not to kind of make it glorify this, but fact that
it's not good in today's day and age. I'm taking away my own and everybody else's work-life balance, so I don't do that.
No, exactly. No, I think that was the question, right? That you worked that hard as well when you were building. This is during our days together at Reliance, etc. But at the same time, I know that you have been practicing meditation and Vipassana, so there was still a lot of balance or sharpness that gave you that edge. Do you want to talk about the practice? Because I'm personally into meditation, so I know that what it does to you. Do you want to talk about the practice and what it has done as a difference, from a difference perspective to your life?
Yeah, it's been incredible for me. So I took on practicing Vipassana in the early 2000s. And so it's nearly 20 years for me to be practicing every day in the morning. And what it does for me is it slows me down. It slows my mind down for that period of time. It allows it to calm itself. It allows it to sharpen. It allows it to become, I don't want to use the right word, but one, introspective, but two, also non-reactionary, right? Our problem is that we are reacting to sensations all the time. An exhilarating sensation, a depressive sensation, a reaction to what somebody else has said and what we hear, reaction to what our mind is creating. And like you just said, we have our best friend and our worst enemy is our mind, right? And the mind can be our best friend, where it keeps us sharp, focused, helps us to deliver, helps us to create some serious amount of value, and helps us, overcome all sorts of challenges. But on the flip side, we also have a mind that is restless, a mind that is out of control, the mind that creates anxiety, fear, brings out the worst in us, the insecurities, all of that. And I think you've got to decide which mind do you really want and which mind do you really have and how you're going to make progress to that. So, there are all kinds of people in the world, people who can control their mind and will find progress all along and they can overcome challenges, and the people who can't, and they can have best of their circumstances, but they won't be able to hold on or grow them, or even better their worst circumstances, because their mind is getting the better of them. Yeah, there's fear and anxiety and all of that plays on your head. And that's something that you've got to be clear about, right? That if you're feeling that anxiety, if you're feeling that fear, if you're feeling insecurities, then there is if you're feeling guilt, then these negative emotions are something that you've got to put in control. And Vipassana is one form of meditation, very, very good, strong form of meditation that can help you overcome some of these.
Tarun, there is this constant, especially on social media, there's this constant conversation about balance. There's this constant conversation about, slowing down and not just, there are people who are talking about hustle. At the same time, there are people who are talking about just a little bit of balance. I think I'm slowly moving towards balance, because maybe it's the age that kind of, does that to you.
It's not
after
age.
Kids. Huh?
It's not age. It's a mindset. Young people are looking for more work-life balance today than the older people.
I think I don't even want to talk about work-life balance. I just feel mental balance is what is, I'm referring to, right? How many hours you choose to work and how many hours you choose to, spend at home is a very personal call, depending on the kind of work you do and situations. But I think the mental balance, where how many hours in a day is your mind calm, right? You're able to think normally. You're not agitated or excited or overstimulated.
And that could be whether you're at work, whether you're at home, whether you're with your parents or your in-laws or your spouse or your kids or your friends, or you're with your colleagues, right?
Yeah.
A state of mind is got nothing to do with, and a balanced state of mind and nothing to do with what you're doing, whether it's work or whether it's,
Sure.
family stuff and so on and so forth, or whether you're traveling or whatever. It's about your control of your mind. So, like you said, I work long hours, but as long as I'm not feeling stressed and I'm not feeling burdened, and I'm not believing that I'm
burnt
doing
out
it because somebody's forcing me to do it, but I'm doing it on my free will because I enjoy it, because it gives me a sense of accomplishment. Then that's fine. I mean, if work is play, then that's fine. If family is play, then that's fine. Sometimes more people, like a lot of people at this COVID state, are wanting family members to go away to work or to different places, because they're done. They're done with the level of stress that they have with having to cater to everybody's needs, because everybody's in one physical location. So, these are not things that are confined to work or family or whatever. It's about how do you maintain a state of mind, and how do you almost like if you have a plant, a young plant, then they build a kyari around it. So how do you, around your mind, build fences that doesn't allow for reactionary stuff that come and hit you, you will react. But you have to decide, out of every 10 things that anybody says or anybody does that are not suited to what you think, or there are contrary to what your beliefs are, or contrary to what you would want to happen in life, how many times you react? What's that percentage? Is it 80%? Is it 20%? Is it 10%? Is it 90%? And as you can bring that down from 10 to 1, and it's never going to be 0, but 10 to 2, that's really where your balance lies.
And how do you bring that balance in your life? Like, between so many things that you're doing, between family, I know you have kids. How do you kind of manage to do that?
I think the one thing is you shouldn't take yourself too seriously. People actually get caught up between their ego and forget their soul.
Sure.
And really, life can be lived through ego or through soul. Right? What do you get attracted to? Soul kind of things, and soul kind of things are happiness, are things that you're willing to give, share, enjoy, so on and so forth. And then ego is about, putting yourself out there, feeling really, ultra charged up all the time and wanting to make a statement to the world and so on and so forth. So every decision you make, you should think about whether is my ego driving that decision, or is my soul driving that decision? Because if your ego is driving that decision, it's bound to get hurt somewhere.
Interesting. You mentioned about, this is probably the last question. You mentioned about, being out there. There is this, especially in the COVID world, right? We're all doing courses, trying to upskill ourselves, personal growth ki baat ho rahi hai, all of these things, which is great. And, this is also one of the best times to utilize the extra time that we had. There is this also constant pressure of building a personal brand because we're all digital now, right? There's nothing wrong or right in it, but what are your thoughts on this? One, is it required, not required? How does one do that? Or, just don't do anything?
I think when you love what you do and do what you love, and if there is a message in that and you want to deliver that, people will latch onto it. But it's not, don't be desperate about it.
Sure.
Right. How many followers you have on social media doesn't define how successful you are. Most successful people don't have as many followers on social media. So you've got to decide what your metrics of success are. And your personal brand is not equal to your social media brand. Your personal brand is your values. Your personal brand is how authentic you are. Your personal brand is on whether you can make an impact on everybody that you meet. And that person who you make an impact will carry your message. And that message is more authentic, more stronger than any social media can take for you. So that's your personal brand. It's the give back. That's your personal brand.
Very, very correct. Very, very true. I think this conversation, Tarun, today is like a sum of the last 10 years, or actually 12, 13 years I've known you and had the opportunity to work with you, but also known you from the outside. I think there's so much more I could have talked, but fast content. So I'm going to keep it short. But thank you so much. This was very, very important. And I think it was a very important conversation for anyone who wanted to understand content, business, and personal brand. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I think I loved your questions and your line of thinking, and I think it's fairly deep. Most people tend to, look at your LinkedIn profile and do some lip service to it, but maybe because we know each other personally and because you're inclined towards creating value and have a sense of purpose is where this conversation was very rich. I hope it turns out for people who listen to it as authentic as I tried to make it here. All the very best and keep up the good work.
Thank you, Tarun. Thank you so much.
If you've enjoyed this conversation, please make sure you hit the like button, comment what was your favorite part, and also subscribe to the channel. We have lots of fantastic people coming up. This podcast is available on your podcast app by the name Questions I Wanted to Ask. You can also follow me on social media for more updates, short format content. Links will be in the description.